Hi class, good day. So for today's discussion, it will be all about the different measures of dispersion. So this is from the topics of SAS modules 11 and 12, and I guess also 13 and 14. But we will focus on the topics from the SAS modules 11 and 12 since we will be having a quiz tomorrow. Quiz 3 will include SAS modules 10, 11, and 12. I believe I have already shared the pre-recorded lecture of Coach Laika. That is a YouTube lecture video from Coach Laika all about computing the mean, mode, and the median. That is your SAS Module 10 topic. For 11 and 12, it will be all about the absolute measures of dispersion, which I will discuss in this pre-recorded lecture. For topics 13 and 14, I will be uploading a separate video or lecture about that, or I will just be referring another lecture again from YouTube, which can be helpful or might be helpful to you as well. Because for now, let us focus on SAS modules 1 to 12. Okay, until 12 muna. Because this week we'll be having quizzes. So tomorrow there will be two quizzes. That's quiz 3, short quiz 3 and long quiz 2, which covers topics from, again, yung quiz 3 is the SAS module 10 to 12. Yung long quiz natin, long quiz 2, SAS modules 7 to 12. Okay? And on Saturday is our first periodical exam that will be SAS modules 1 to 12. So focus muna tayo sa 1 to 12. Next week will be already the start of the second period. So doon na si SAS module 13 until SAS module 24. Okay? So again, let's go back. Today we will be discussing about the different measures of dispersion. When you say dispersion, what comes from your mind? Dispersion is the scattering of values, okay? When you say disperse, this is the scattering again of the values of a frequency distribution from an average, okay? So let's proceed. So measures of dispersion. So again, measures of dispersion. It indicates how the observations are scattered or dispersed above the average. Okay, so meaning class, these are values of observation or set of data that are scattered above the mean or the average. Okay, so there are two types of the measures of dispersion. It could be absolute dispersion or relative dispersion. When you say absolute dispersion, this is expressed in original unit of observations. Again, original or from the real value. Examples of absolute measures of dispersion includes range, mean absolute deviation, standard deviation, and quartile deviation. Another type is your relative dispersion. These are topics from your SAS module 13 and 14 already. I'll just give you an overview, but I'll be uploading or might be referring another pre-recorded lecture for this. And again, relative dispersion is expressed in percentage, which is also called your coefficient of dispersion. Again, relative dispersion percentage, or this is the ratio. Again, ratio to the total magnitude. Measures of dispersion under relative dispersion includes coefficient of variation, coefficient of mean deviation, and coefficient of quartile deviation. Okay, again, two types of measures of dispersion are absolute dispersion and relative dispersion. Let us first have or focus for this discussion about all about absolute measures of dispersion. Again, you have the range, mean absolute deviation, variance, and standard deviation. Let's start with range. Range is the difference between the largest and the smallest values in the set of data. Meaning, this is the difference between the highest value and the lowest value. So, in this, the example shown on the screen, the highest value or the maximum value in this set of data is 44. The lowest value is 25. Simply to get the range, 44 minus 25, that is equal to 19. So the range is 19. I have already discussed about range as well in my previous pre-recorded lecture if you just watch constructing frequency distribution table. And also, we all of us or most of us already understand what range is. We have this in our daily life. Yung range ng age ng sisters natin, yung scores with our together with our classmates, the grades, everything parang may range. Okay? So, always remember class, yung statistics, we have it every day. We live life with statistics. Okay? Again, range is just the difference between the largest and the smallest values in the set of data. Next, the second absolute measure of dispersion is mean absolute deviation, or abbreviated as MAD or MAD. So this is the average deviation of the absolute score values from the mean. When you say average deviation, this is only the absolute average deviation of those set of data or values that deviates from the mean. Okay? When you say deviation class, what comes to your mind? Ito yung naiiba. So for example, in a classroom, there are 10 males and only one female, okay? That one female deviates from the group kasi siya lang yung naiba, okay? So, again, when you say deviation in statistics, this is the difference between a value in a frequency distribution. Again, yung MAD or mean absolute deviation is the average deviation of the absolute score values from the mean. When you say mean, ano ganito class? Mean is the average of the set of data. Okay? Or it is the sum of all the values divided by the number of values. Your mean absolute deviation, ito yung formula for the ungrouped data and the grouped data. If you notice, nag-iiba lang din sa formula is for group data may frequency na. Okay? Of course, common sense kasi group data na mas marami sila. You need to group them into a frequency distribution, organize them rather into a frequency distribution table and um, tally or count how frequent the observations are throughout the distribution. Okay? So let us define or give meaning to each of these symbols. X here is the values of each observation. Mu, this is read as mu class. This is a Greek letter denoting population mean. Capital N is the number of cases or the population size. Okay? For group data, the same lang din. The only difference is this time we have already the class mark. Capital X, this is small x class. By the way, this is small x. Capital X for the class mark or CM. I have already discussed about class mark in my previous pre-recorded lecture as well, all about frequency distribution table. But this is just a recall. Class mark, this is the midpoint values or the average bit of the upper limit and the lower limit. Okay? So again, yung class mark, for example, yung class interval is 10 to 19. So the upper limit is 19. You add it with the lower limit 10 divided by 2, which is 14.5. That is your class mark. Okay? And small f stands for frequency. Okay? Of course, class, these formula are for your population mean absolute deviation. If sample mean absolute deviation is asked, instead of mu na x bar ito, x bar is equal to your sample mean. So x bar to. And this one, instead of capital N, this is small letter n, which represents number of cases or the sample size. The same way of solving, but the symbols are different. Okay, you just have to write the symbols properly, the correct formula, especially it's strict si teacher. Okay? And also, we have to get used lang po para masanay tayo what these symbols are for. Okay? Kaya for mu, this is really for population mean. So that we will get used to the different symbols. Okay? Next, let's have the first example. These are a group set of data. So the uric acid levels of 5 patients treated at the outpatient department of Southwestern University Hospital are recorded as follows. We have 7.8. This is 7.8 class, not 7 and 8. 6.9, 10.8, 9.4, and 8.7. Okay. First, we have to compute the mean. Okay. In any measures of dispersion or solutions, the first thing that in any solution or solving the measures of dispersion, we have first to compute the mean. Okay? And of course, before mag-compute ng mean, na-organize na natin yung set of data through tabulation. Okay? Dapat naka-organize yung data para hindi na tayo magkamali on the later run. Okay? So, first compute the mean. So we have here where we're using population mean kasi population mean yung sinusolve natin. This is the formula for your population mean. Mu is equal to the summation of x, summation of the values of each observation divided by n. Capital N again is your population size, which is 5. Okay? Kasi there are 5 patients. So, these are the set of data. You just have to add this. 7.8 plus 6.9 plus 10.8 plus 9.4 plus 8.7. When you add all of this, that will be equal to 43.6. So summation of x is equal to 43.6. 43.6 divided by 5 kasi 5 yung population size, mu is equal to 8.7. I hope you have your scientific calculator with you so that it will be easier for you to cope up and absorb all the discussion. So I hope class you have with you your calculator so that you can solve with me. Okay? Baka may mali-mali sa solution, at least alam nyo. Okay? So again, the population mean is 8.7. Are we done? No, we're not yet done. This is just the population mean. Let's proceed to the next step. We have to compute the mean absolute deviation. So this one, ito yung given set of data. Yung naka-orange borders, ito yung i-continue natin to tabulate. Or we add columns in our table for these values. This is your population mean. You may or may not put this in your table. I just put this para mas makita nyo. The population mean, again, the one we solved earlier, this one is equal to 8.7. So we have, again, another column that is your x, the values of each observation minus the population mean. So that's 7.8 minus 8.7, which is equal to negative 0.9. And then you do the same here below, okay? Then another column, that's the absolute value of this, the absolute value of the difference of your data or observation and your population mean. Okay? So absolute value of negative 0.9, that is 0.9. Again, class, when you say absolute value, this is the real or original number or value. For example, the absolute value of negative 4, that will always be 4. Regardless of the sign, if it's positive or negative, that will always, the answer of the absolute value will always be the real number. So again, absolute value of negative 0.9 is 0.9. So, walang negative dito kasi nga real number. So, you just add this to get the summation of the absolute value of the difference of the observation and the population mean, or the summation of your x minus mu, that is equal to 5.5. This one, you add this, that is 5.5. Using the formula for finding your population mean absolute deviation for ungrouped data, yung numerator nyo dito dapat 5.5. This is this one. Okay, this one. Yung denominator, yes, yung denominator nyo dito, that should be 1 po, that should be 5. Okay? 5 yung denominator nyo dyan. Okay? So, your 5.5 divided by 5, that is equal to 1.1. Okay? That is equal to 1.1. So, therefore, the average distance of the scores from the mean is 1.1. Claro? Let's proceed. This time, another example, but with grouped data na. Approximate the mean absolute deviation given the following frequency distribution table. For group set of data, you will expect that we will be giving already the initial frequency distribution table that consists the class interval or classes and the frequency. Kasi nga, to maximize time, it will be time consuming as well if we ask for the measures of dispersion and then you still have to construct and solve for the frequency distribution table. So you'll be expect that usually for group data, you'll be given values like this or set of tables like this. Okay? Kasi for if set of data yung ibibigay, you still have to construct frequency distribution table before solving what is asked. Like example, you're being asked for mean absolute deviation. So it will take much of your time, no? So expect na ganito din yung ibibigay. So for group data, again, lahat, even sa ungroup data, if in the other measures of dispersion as well, we have always to compute the mean and then you compute the mean absolute deviation. First, we compute the mean. How do we compute the mean? Using this formula, population mean is equal to summation of your fx divided by capital N. So ano ba to sila? Of course, we get it from our table. So this is the given set of data. Yung naka-orange, ito yung na-add natin. X again here, capital X is your class mark. Kasi group na siya. We need to get the class mark. Again, this is the average or the midpoint value of the upper limit and the lower limit. So 34 yung upper limit dito, 30 yung lower limit. That's 30 plus 34 divided by 2 is equal to 32. So 32 yung class mark and then you do the same here below. Okay? Another column, that is your fx, meaning frequency times the class mark. So 6 times 32, that's 192. And then you do the same below. Tapos you add this column here, that is the summation of fx is equal to 1,320. You also add your frequency. So that's capital N is equal to 30. How did I get the frequency? Again, through tally. You just have to tally how frequent the set of the data are all throughout all throughout the set. Okay, frequent the value of each observation all throughout this set. Okay, so yun yung frequency. So again, substitute using this formula, summation of fx, yung numerator nyo dyan dapat 1,320 divided by 30 kasi 30 yung population size. The population mean therefore is 44. Again, we're not yet done. Let's go to the second step. You compute the mean absolute deviation. Using this formula for group data of the mean absolute deviation, still, this time it's already group my frequency na. So, ito yung naka-black. This is the table previously. We just have to continue yung mga naka-orange. So, this is your population mean, again, which we compute earlier, ito 44. Pwede na ding hindi to ilagay sa table. Class, I just show it to you para it will be much clearer and understandable as we go along our lectures. And then, again, this is the population mean. And then, x minus, meaning class mark minus population mean. Okay, so in here, 32 minus 44, that is negative 12. Then 37 minus 44, that's negative 7. And then you do the same below. This one is the absolute value of this, the absolute value of the difference of the class mark and the population mean. So, or the absolute value of your x minus mu. So, absolute value of negative 12 is 12. Absolute value of negative 7 is 7. Absolute value of negative 2 is 2. Absolute value of 3 is 3. Absolute value of 8 is 8. Okay? Then last column, that's frequency times this one. Okay? Yung frequency natin, for example, here you have 6 times 12. That is equal to 72. Here you have 4 times 7. That's 28. And then you do the same below. Okay? You get the sum of this, the total, the summation of your f times the absolute value of x minus mu is equal to 208. So in your formula, yung numerator nyo dyan dapat 208. Ito siya, numerator. This is this one, 208. Then the denominator is your capital N. Yung capital N dyan class, that is equal to 30. 30 there, 30 here is your population size. That's the total number of your frequency. Ito. So, yung napakita ko earlier, ito. Okay? So, 208 divided by 30, that's mean absolute deviation is equal to 6.93. Therefore, the average distance of the scores from the mean is 6.93. Okay? So, we are already in standard deviation. I hope you understand the range and mean absolute deviation. So, ganun lang siya kasimple class. Actually, mathematics and statistics, statistics is also math, ang daming computation, but the good thing about statistics are you have the formulas, okay? You just have to put your heart into it, class. I understand the symbols like sigma, square root, the absolute value, mu, fractions, math, and the larger picture is really intimidating to look at. Okay, I tried that as well and I felt that. Okay, but if you just put your heart into it, you try to solve the process step by step, and then you try to understand and play with those numbers, then you'll be able to go through math and statistics smoothly. Okay, these are for those students who kept on and saying that in the exit ticket that the topics along the run are actually getting complicated and difficult. And I understand that, okay? But if you notice, class, if you try to notice lang, in statistics, it's continuous, okay? If you just understand mean, you just understand frequency distribution table, and then nagko-continue na siya, parang applicable pa rin siya sa next topics, okay? And parang the same pa rin, the same processes. Nag-iiba lang yung mga formula, and the formulas are already provided. You just have to substitute. Okay? Of course, you don't have to memorize all of the formulas. That will be quite impossible. You can write, this is just one study tip. You can write them in an index card or in index cards para if you have to solve the mean absolute deviation, standard deviation, mode, median, fractals, for example, search formula, you just have to look at your index cards of formulas. Okay, that's just another tip that I want to share. Siguro kung ma-memorize nyo yung lahat ng formula, okay lang. Pero that will be quite stressful na for everyone. Okay, so that's all. Let's proceed to the next measure of dispersion. That is your standard deviation. Standard deviation and variance. Okay, standard deviation and variance class are the measure of the spread of data. Okay, yung standard deviation, this is the measure of the amount of variation or dispersion of the set of data relative to the mean. Okay, again, these are measures of the spread of data relative to the mean. So the standard deviation is very important for us to understand the nature of the data by knowing how close or far they are from the mean. Okay? or the average, from the average. Okay, so standard deviation is another common measure of dispersion. Its symbol is this one is a small Greek alphabet sigma, which denotes population standard deviation, and small letter s, English alphabet S, for sample standard deviation. Okay? For standard deviation class, when the standard deviation is low or lesser or lower, the values are closer to the mean. Okay? When the standard deviation is higher, meaning the values are from or spread out from the mean. Okay? So mas malayo siya. So the deviation is very important, especially for us. Those who are working also in laboratories, we were using this standard deviation and our quality control charts to know if may mga um, values na that already serves as outliers or showing na significant differences from the mean, okay? From other values para malaman kung ano yung pwede nga mga errors, okay? So that's one thing na important kit sa standard deviation. And so on, marami pa. Okay? So again, let's go back. These are the formulas for your standard deviation. This is for your group set of data. Meron siyang frequency. This one for ungroup set of data. So, X refers to the values of each observation. F for frequency. For group data, small f ha, yung mu is the population mean. And capital N, that's population size. Yung X bar, that's your sample mean. And then small n, that's your sample size. Okay, let's proceed. Variance, this is another absolute measure of dispersion. This is the square of standard deviation class. So if this is the square of standard deviation, meaning yung standard deviation natin is the square root of your variance. Okay? Variance is also the measure. It's a statistical measure of the spread of data between numbers, or it's the measure of the variation or the dispersion of the set of data from each other. Okay? Kung how far they are from each other. So, variance is the square of your standard deviation. It shows or depicts outliers, those values that are already outliers, meaning they show significant differences from each other or from the other values or from the mean. Okay? So, dito is yung mga heavily significant values na nag-outlie or that are already very far from each other or from the mean. Okay? So, yun yung variance. And its symbol is the same with your standard deviation, but this time it is squared. Kasi nga, this is the square of your standard deviation, meaning your standard deviation is the square root of your variance. Okay? So these are the formula for variance. It's the same with standard deviation, but this time walang square root. Okay? Kasi squared siya. Okay? Also this one, this is for group data, and this one for ungroup data. The same, yung X, again, values of each observation. Small f, yung frequency or group data. Mu is the population size. Capital N, that's your, mu is the population mean, rather. Capital N is the population size, and X bar is the sample mean, and then small n, that's your sample size. Okay? Let's proceed to our first example. This time we have a grouped set of data. Consider the following 17 ketogenic steroids of 5 men. You have 8, 6, 3, 4, and 4. Solve for the standard deviation and for the population standard deviation and variance. So this is the set of data. You have 5 as the 5 yung population size natin. So how do you compute the mean? Population mean is equal to the summation of x divided by capital N. Capital N, that's your population size. That is 5. And yung summation of x, you just add all the values of each observation. Ito, 8 plus 6 plus 3 plus 4 plus 4, that's equal to 25. So yung numerator nyo dito dapat 25 divided by the denominator 5, that is equal to 5. So your population mean is equal to 5. If sample mean is asked, in case it's still the same but this time x bar yung symbol that denotes sample mean and small n that denotes your sample size. Okay? Compute the population. This time, we're already in the second step. We already have the population mean. This time, we will already compute the standard deviation and the variance. So, this is the set of data given. Yung mga naka-orange, ito na naman yung na-add natin na columns of our table. So, this is your population mean, which we solved earlier, which is 5. Pwede na itong hindi ilagay sa table, but again, I'll show it to you para it will be much clearer and understandable. Okay? So this one, you get x. That's your observation, the value of each observation minus the mu or the population mean. So example 8 minus 5, that's 3. And then you do the same below. Okay? Next is another column, you square this one. Okay? Get the square of this one. The square of 3 is 9. Square of 1 is 1. Square of negative 2, that's 4. And so on and so forth. Then you add this, meaning you get the summation of the square of the difference of your value and your population mean. Meaning the summation of the square of x minus mu, that is equal to 16. This one, you add this is equal to 16. Using this formula for population standard deviation and variance, ito, so that's 16. Ito siya, 16 to class this one. Okay, see the arrow, look at the arrow, 16 this one. That's the numerator divided by 5. Kasi 5 yung population size. That will be equal to 3.2. Therefore, yung population variance natin is equal to 3.2. Okay, again, population variance is the square of your standard deviation. So ito, hindi pa man natin na square root, ito na yung population variance. Pag na square root na natin, meaning square root of 3.2, may radical na symbol na, square root of 3.2, which is equal to 1.79, this is already your standard deviation. Again, ito yung variance, population variance, at ito yung population standard deviation. Okay? Ito square, the standard deviation, and this one is your variance. When you say variance, this is the square of your standard deviation, which is your population variance, and this one is your population standard deviation. Again, class, yung variance nyo square ng standard deviation, yung standard deviation square root ng variance. For example, 9. Si 9, pag we square 9, 9 times 9 or 9 squared, that's 81. So 81 there will serve as the variance, and the 9 will serve as the standard deviation. If you square root your 81, that's equal to 9, okay? So again, standard deviation, it's the square root of variance, and variance is a square of your standard deviation. So we come up with these answers, yung mga naka-orange. If sample, standard deviation, and variance is asked, you use this formula. Okay? Sample and population, standard deviation, and variance is different because, as you can see, sa denominator, you have to subtract 1, no? You have to subtract 1 from the sample size. Ito, hindi. Walang subtract. Sample size lang talaga. So, let's try to solve. Yung numerator dito, it's still 16. Okay, 16. Kasi you just have to change this to x bar. X bar na yun kasi sample mean. And as well as this. X bar na din to kasi sample mean. as well as this, x bar na din kasi sample mean. Again, same lang naman yung pag-compute ng sample mean at population mean. Magkaiba lang yung symbols. So, same pa rin yung makuha natin 16. Again, class, nasa sample SD tayo ha. Ito yung sinolve natin. I don't have a step-by-step solution on the slide, in the slide, but I will just show you through verbal. I hope you have a pen, then a calculator with you so that you can follow. So, yung numerator dito, 16. Ito ha, 16. This time, 16, you just divide it with 4. Bakit 4? Kasi 5 minus 1. Okay, 5 yung sample size minus 1. So, that is already 4 yung denominator. 16 divided by 4, that's 4. Okay? So, meaning, yung sample variance is 4. Pag na-square root na natin si 4, yung sample standard deviation is 2. Again, sample variance is 4 and the sample standard deviation is 2. Okay? Let's proceed. This time, di ba kanina, when you compute the standard deviation and the variance, you need to compute the mean first. Is it possible to not compute the mean? Yes. This time, we will compute the standard deviation and the variance without the need to compute the mean. Okay? So, this is the same set of data here, class, given. Same set of data lang to ha. So, this is the given set of data. What we do, we just add another column. We just square the values of each observation. For example, that's your x squared. X here is 8 squared is 64. 6 squared is 36, and so on and so forth. Then you just add or get the summation of your x squared that's equal to 141. You also get the sum of this, your x, which is 25, okay? Then your n here, or the number of observations, the number of, yes, the number of observations, that's your population size, is equal to 5. Using this formula and getting your population standard deviation, we just substitute these values. So, ito na siya. So, first, yung summation of x squared. This one, class, is this one. Summation of x squared, this one, is 141 divided by n. So, divide natin sa 5. 5 kasi yung n, yung capital N or population size. Minus the square of summation of x. So, yung summation of x, ano to? Dito. This one, 25 divided by 5. Yung 5 dyan is your capital N or that's your population size. And then you square that. Okay? So again, yung dapat is 141 divided by 5 minus 25 divided by 5 squared. Okay? You always follow the PEMDAS rule, whatever happens in all aspects in solving. So first, we solve the parenthesis first. 25 divided by 5, that is 5. 5 to class. And then, you square, next to PEMDAS, next to parenthesis is the exponent. So, 5 to, the square of 5 is 25. So, kaya to 25, okay? So, this one, you also solve this. 141 divided by 5, that's 28.2. So, this time, we already have 28.2 minus 25. That's equal to 3.2. Therefore, the population variance is equal to 3.2. But when we find the square root of 3.2, that is equal to 1.79, this is already your population standard deviation. Let us check from the previous solution using the one that we have to compute the mean first. This one, the answer is, where are we now? Okay. They were still here. I'm sorry. Just have to go back. Okay, this one. This one is the solution that in which we have to find the mean first. So ito yung 3.2, yung population variance, at yung population standard deviation is 1.79. Let us check using this way without computing the mean. So the population variance is still 3.2, tama. And the population standard deviation is 1.79. Hooray! We are doing it correctly. Are you doing it correctly? Are you solving with me? Okay, class. So, this time, mas madali to. Okay? Mas madali gid ni siyang gawin. So, ito na lang yung gawin nyo. Unless if you are really asked to compute the mean. Okay? So, if sample SD is asked, this time, ito na naman yung formula. So, let us solve. Kanina, when we solve, ilan nga yung sample SD? That is sample variance, that's 4. Tapos, yung sample standard deviation or SD, that is equal to 2. Let us solve this time if tama ba. Okay, do you have pen with you? Solve natin. I'll also get my paper. So there, n there is equal to 5. Okay, ito n, this is equal to 5 times the summation of x squared. Ito, 141 times 141 minus the summation of x, which is 25, this one, squared, or the square of your 25. Okay? Divided by, in your denominator, that should be 5 times, inside the parenthesis, that should be 5 minus 1. Okay? Did you get it? Okay. So, for the denominator, you already have 5 times 1 for 1. Multiply 5 and 1 for 1, that's 705. Minus, you square the 25, kasi nga, squared of your summation of x, that is equal to, ilan? 625. Okay? For denominator, that will be equal already to 4 times 4. Kasi nga, 5 minus 4 man yung sulod sa parenthesis. 5 minus 1. So, that's equal to 4 already. That is 5 times 4. So, that's equal to 20. Dapat 20 yung denominator. Did you follow? Sa numerator, dapat 80. 705 minus 625 divided by 20. Correct. Okay? So, the answer is 4. Therefore, the sample variance using this formula without the need to compute the mean is equal to 4 pa rin. Same kanina. And the square root of 4 is 2. So, the sample standard deviation is 2. Okay? Did you get it, class? Use this formula if sample standard deviation is asked without the need to compute the mean. If you still did not understand, do not hesitate to approach me. We'll try to dissect everything para mas maintindihan talaga. Okay? Next, another set of example, another set of data, this time grouped na naman, group set of data. First, we have to compute the mean again. So, these are your set of data given. Ito na, we already give you classes until the frequency. Just have to add another columns. Itong naka-orange, we get again the class mark, okay? Class mark again, it's the average or the midpoint value of the upper limit and the lower limit. Here, it's 19, ang upper limit, plus the lower limit 10 divided by 2, that's equal to 14.5. And you do the same below, okay? Next is another column, that's your fx. This one, frequency times x, meaning 5 times 14.5, that's 72.5, and so on and so forth. Next, you get the sum of this, the summation of fx, that's 417.5. This time, also here, summation of frequency, that is 15. What we are using here is already sample, kasi nga x bar na siya. We are computing the sample mean. Okay? Sample na naman kasi population tayo all through in our previous example. Si sample na naman this time. So, using this formula, again, you have 417.5, yung summation of fx divided by 15. The sample mean is 27.83. If the population mean is asked, use this formula. The same process, pero instead of x bar, mu na to kasi population mean, summation of fx divided by capital N, that's your population size. Okay? Okay, if you notice, class, the same way of solving but different symbols, please practice writing the correct formula with their respective symbols talaga. It's because that will help you at mas ma-practice nyo na ma-familiarize yung different symbols that denotes them. Okay? Kasi nga, good thing if the choices are multiple, if the exam or multiple choice is a multiple choice type of exam, you'll be able to find the correct answer. Okay? How about if you're really asked to solve and write the formula? So example dito, sample mean. Tapos yung na-write nyo is mu is equal to 27.83. Wrong pa rin yun kasi sample mean yung hinahanap and then you answer the population mean. Okay? So you practice writing and familiarizing the correct symbols. Next, second step, we already compute the mean here. Second step, compute the standard deviation and variance. So ito yung set of data na ibinigay. We just have to add another columns to compute the other data. So ito, of the table. So ito, this is already computed previously. Ito siya, 27.84. That is your sample mean. 27.83 rather. I'm sorry. Excuse me. 27.83. And this one here, this is your x. X is actually the class mark minus the sample mean. So example, that's 14.5 minus 27.83. That's negative 13.33. And so on and so forth. And here you just get the square of the difference of your class mark and sample mean, the square of this one. So negative 13.33 squared, that's 177.69. And so on and so forth. You do the same here. Last column of the table, just have to multiply frequency and, okay, wait lang class ha, malubat na po. Just have to multiply, oh my god, okay. Just have to multiply frequency and this one, the square of the difference of your class mark and your sample mean. So again, yung frequency i-multiply nyo to get this. So that is 5 times 177.69. That is equal to 888.45. You do the same process below on the next data. Okay? Get the sum of this. That's summation of the frequency of the square of the difference of the class mark and the sample mean, which is equal to 2,333.34. Again, the summation of the frequency times the square of x minus x bar, that's equal to 2,333.34. Okay? Using this formula this time, ito yung formula in finding the standard deviation and the variance. If you notice, magkaiba kasi nga, if population SD is as or variance, you use this formula. Okay? The same but walang minus 1 sa denominator, just the population size. Ito, sample size minus 1. Okay? You just have to familiarize or write the formula and then substitute lang talaga yung statistics class. You don't even need to really derive, kagaya ng physics. You have to do a lot of derivations. Dito parang wala ng derivations. Parang kang robot, substitute na lang ng values. Okay? So this one, using this formula, your numerator should be 2,333.34. Kasi this one, ito lang to siya, class. Parang marami, no? Pero galing ra yan dito sa table. Ito na dyan na siya. Okay? Again, as what I said, intimidating siyang tingnan. Pero if you do it heartily and step by step, of course, gumawa kayo ng table una at na-organize yung data, ito lang good siya. Okay? Numerator should be 2,333.34 divided by 15 minus 1. Bakit 15? 15, that's the total number of the frequency. That's your sample size minus 1. So that will be already 14. So again, 2,333.34 divided by 14, that's equal to 166.67. Therefore, the sample variance is 166.67. If we find the square root of 166.67, that will be already your sample standard deviation, which is 12.91. Okay? If population SD is asked, you use again this formula. The same lang yun siya class. The only difference is you do not need to minus 1 in the denominator. Of course, ito population mean kasi ito sample mean. Again, yung mga symbols lang talaga nagkakaiba. Solving it will be most of the time the same. Of course, ito magkaiba siya kasi may minus 1. So, iba yung process. Iba yung answer. Next, yes, for group data, it is also possible to compute standard deviation and variance without computing the mean, okay? Without computing the mean, we can already solve SD and variance. The same set of data to previously class had the same set of data. This one, the same set of data. You just have to, this is the set of data given earlier. Just have to, ito yung given, the classes and the frequency. Of course, you find the class mark. Alam nyo na paano yan. Then you find the frequency times the class mark. Then you find, for this one, without computing the mean, if you can see ang haba-haba ng table dito, ang haba, okay? This one, parang ganito lang. You just have to square x or square of your class mark. So example, 14.5 squared, that's equal to 27.83. 24.5 rather squared is equal to 27 point. Wait, what's wrong with this? You just have to get the square of this one, the class mark. Okay, I'll just solve it class. 27.83 squared. That's 774.51. Class, there is an error here, okay? Pero squared to ha, squared ng class mark, okay? This is the squared of your class mark. This is not 27.83. There is a clerical error. Again, this should be the square of your class mark. Again, ito 14.5 for example. Squared is, let's square this one. 14.5 squared. That's 210.25. Sige, tuloy-tuloy na natin. Plus the 24.5. Kasi let's get the sum of this. 24.5 squared plus 34.5 squared plus 44.5 squared plus 54.5. Okay. 54.5 squared. Okay. Wait lang class, there's something wrong here. For a while, I will check this one. Okay, let's go back. So yes, ito talaga class. This is wrong ha. I cannot edit it right now, but kayo na lang mag-edit. Squared ito ng class mark. So 14.5 squared, that's equal to 210.25 ito. And then this one, 24.5 squared, this is 600.25. Okay? This one, 34.5 squared, this is equal to 1,190.25. This one, 44.5 squared, this is equal to 27.83. No, sorry. This is equal to 1,980.25. And this one, 54.5 squared, this is equal to 2,970.25. You get the summation of your, and then next step is you get the square of your fx. Ito, square of fx. So, 72.5. Tama, class? Ito class, nagkamali talaga dito. Parang na-copy-paste lang to, okay? Square of fx ito. Class, change this, everything here, okay? Again, this should be the square root of class mark, meaning square root ng 14.5, and so on and so forth. Ito din, fx squared, this should be the square of yours, fx. Ito, 72.5 squared, that is equal to 1,051.25, and so on and so forth, okay? Then you get the summation of fx squared. Tama naman to. Siguro na copy-paste lang talaga to. Summation of fx squared is equal to 113,953.75. And then you get also the summation of fx, kasi ito yung mga kailangan na values for our formula. Summation of fx, summation nito, at summation nito. Summation ni fx, summation ni fx squared. Okay, summation fx is 417.5. And the n, or the sample size, that's your total number of frequencies. Okay? Again, class, change nyo to ha. Mali ang lahat ng data dito. This should be the square of this one, the class mark, and this one, square of your fx. Dapat, when you add this fx squared and this fx, ito yung lumabas. Kasi tama to. Okay? So, let's apply using this formula. Again, class, without computing the mean yung formula na to, ha? So, this time, yung numerator nyo dapat na 15, kasi 15 yung sample size, times 13,953.75. Saan to galing? Ito, dito, your summation of fx squared minus 417.5 squared. So, yung 417.5, this is the summation of fx. Ito siya. Dito pa natin square sa formula. Ito, naka-square na to daan. Yung ani na gid ni siya. This is already your computed frequency times class mark squared. Okay? Again, this is your numerator. It should appear like this. Denominator will be 15 times 15 minus 1 again. Kasi sample. Sample standard deviation yung hinahanap. So, when you compute the everything sa numerator, it will be equal to 35,000 divided by 210. 210 kasi 15 times 14, that's 210. 14 kasi minus 1 to. Okay? So, the correct answer, 35,000 divided by 210 is 166.67. This time, this is already your sample variance. When you square root, find the square root of 166.67. That's your sample standard deviation. That's equal to 12.91. Let us check it from our previous example using a step that will compute the mean. Kasi ito, hindi na tayo nag-compute ng mean. Okay? O, di ba? Same lang yung answer. Okay? If I were you, ito na rin yung gamitin ko. I don't need to compute the mean kasi pwede ko namang mahanap si standard deviation at variance without computing the mean using this formula. But of course, when you're asked to compute the mean, you have to compute the mean as well. If population SD is asked, use this formula. So ito na formula ha. If population, standard deviation, and variance. Same lang naman ng formula yung standard deviation and variance class. Okay, let's recall. Go back. Same lang talaga. Just remember yung standard deviation, square root na siya. Pag square root ng answer, yun yung standard deviation. Pag squared pa siya, or yung square ng standard deviation, yun yung variance. Okay? Let's go back. We are done. Again, the different absolute measures of dispersion that we discussed are your range, mean absolute deviation, your standard deviation, and variance. Okay, let's move on to relative dispersion. Again, relative dispersion, this is the ratio or the percentage to the total magnitude. Examples of relative dispersion includes coefficient of quartile deviation, coefficient of mean deviation, and coefficient of variation, which is discussed in your SAS Module 13 and 14. Again, we'll focus first from SAS Modules 1 to 12. I have already released pre-recorded lectures from SAS Modules 1 to 6. Yung Rationale class of the Quiz 1 that covers SAS Module 1 to 4. Yung 5, it's all about graphs. You refer to your SAS module. That is very self-explanatory already. SAS Module 6, I have discussed about frequency distribution table. SAS Module 7, that's all about mortality and morbidity rate, and so on. You also study your SAS module. Tapos, for 8, 9, 10, for SAS module 8, 9, 10, you watch Coach Laika's pre-recorded YouTube video about mode, mean, and median. And then for 11 and 12, that's all about absolute measures of dispersion, which I discuss in this lecture. And for 13 to 24, that will be already in your second period coverage, which will start next week. As much as possible, we have exams for this week, and if you have vacant time, you do advanced readings for your second period. Okay, we can do this class. Relative dispersion, you have coefficient of variation. This is another measure of dispersion, which is defined as the ratio of the standard deviation to its mean. This measure is especially useful when one compares the variability of two sets of data having different units. Okay, different units. So this as the formula of coefficient of variation. I don't have example, but this is very understandable, rigid class. Population coefficient variation, you use this formula. You have here sigma divided by mu, or this is your population standard deviation divided by the population mean times 100%. Okay? Of course, this time, yung kinompute nyo, yung needed nyo dito na values is the computed population standard deviation and the population mean. For example, coefficient of variation, you have small s to class ha, that is actually your sample standard deviation divided by the x bar, that is your sample mean, times 100%. So you needed the values that you have to compute are your sample standard deviation and sample mean. So dito, applicable yung kailangan mo mag-compute muna ng mean in finding the standard deviation and variance. Okay? So next, you have quartile division. I'll not discuss this. I will be discussing relative dispersion, or I might be referring you to a pre-recorded YouTube lecture again regarding relative dispersion. This is already in your second period. So, hindi ko na to i-discuss dito para hindi kayo masyadong information overload. Focus muna sa SAS modules 1 to 12 and prepare for long quiz 3. I mean, short quiz 3 and long quiz 2 tomorrow, and your first periodical exam, 100 items on Saturday. That will be SAS modules 1 to 12. Again, that would be all class for today's lecture. My reference is Tumakin Ferdinand. This is again one of the references of your SAS modules, your student activity sheet modules. So you just study your SAS modules class. You also do advanced readings for the next period after the first period, okay? For now, focus sa first period topics. You study, read your SAS modules heartily. If you can do it with your group, then do it. If mas maayo kag self-study, then do it, okay? You watch the pre-recorded lectures I've sent, as well as the YouTube pre-recorded lectures, even though it's not mine. I watch those videos as well. I'll really spend time watching those videos, and I find it helpful. I hope it is also helpful for you. Okay? These lectures are only supplementary to help you or to assist you in your understanding of your modules. Okay? We will be giving you quizzes, and that will be really based on your SAS modules and the pre-recorded lectures. Okay? So anything, if you have questions and clarifications, just message me or Dr. Mario, but please do it during office hours. That would be all, class, about the different measures of dispersion, particularly the absolute measures of dispersion. Thank you so much for listening to this quick pre-recorded lecture. Study smart and God bless. That would be all.